Let's really drill down into Europe and some sovereignty in action. So we have 3 deals as we're waiting for the American capital markets to unfreeze and hopefully get some liquidity flowing. Let's talk about how Europe is writing its own future. 3 deals landing this week. First up, we've got Mistral acquiring Vienna's Emmy AI, their second M&A in 3 months. Now, they look like they're pivoting hard into industrial physics simulation. What are your thoughts on this acquisition?
We've been saying for a while that frontier labs, they have to be application companies. It's not enough to just have a model. You have to have an application or links to an application on top. Mistral, they have done a lot of work with corporates. They've really been actually possibly a little bit ahead of what Anthropic and OpenAI did. Mistral have been working directly with corporates to implement and the kind of the services around. I always
figure they kind of gave up on the foundation. Not gave up, but they almost thought, okay, we need to go early into the application layer. We can see the future. It was always my thinking.
Yeah. No, and I think that's right. And what they're doing here with Emmy. So who is Emmy? Well, it's a company was founded just a couple of years ago in 2024 in Austria. They raised a nice big seed round at the time, 15 million euros. And that's sort of what they've been raised, all that's been raised since then. What they're developing are what they call neural surrogates for physics. And what does that mean? Well, if you think about designing any kind of engineering application, you have to go through historically simulation, computational fluid dynamics and other types of simulation, where you try to work out how is this car or this aircraft, this fighter jet, going to behave in the real world once we actually make the thing. And of course, you can make the hardware, you can put it into a wind tunnel, you can do some measurements, but it's really expensive. So if you can simulate it ahead of time, that's better. The challenge with simulation is it's computationally very, very intensive. And so it will take a long time to simulate each design. And if you want to explore a design space, you want to figure out, well, what shape should my fighter jet have? Or what shape should my Formula One car have to make it most aerodynamic, to make it fastest, minimize drag, all that stuff? Then it's much better if you can explore a big design space quickly. And that's really hard to do with simulation. And so the whole idea of these next-gen models is to say, well, instead of using simulation, we'll use AI, kind of machine learning based models that quickly can explore a huge design space to see what are all these different design options going to yield in terms of output. And so that's exactly what Emmy was doing. Another company, UK company that's in a similar space is PhysicsX. And now Mistral have acquired Emmy, and it kind of shows us a little bit about where they think the puck is going to and where they're skating to.
Yeah, I think that the sovereign play is important, and I wish them every success. The second story in the sovereign play was the European Innovation Council. They've gone with EQT to manage the 5 billion Scale Up Europe Fund. They beat Atomico in the final round, with Eurozone, North Zone, and Vitruvian all falling out in previous rounds. Any insight, thoughts on the EIC deal with EQT?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I mean, firstly, let's just pick up on where you left off. Why did they win? As you say, there are several competitors, Eurozone, Vitruvian.
And it's the who's who, right? I mean,
Atomico.
Who's who are European funds. So yeah,
certainly some of the bigger groups. I think why did they win? They've got a very good pedigree. They've got many unicorns in their stables. They're known as a big firm that's well run. They're great at picking, great at supporting. There was possibly also a sense that, we compare them to Atomico. Well, Atomico comes from more of a VC heritage. So they have a small institutional platform. And you have Eurozone, which is possibly seen as maybe more of a French play, where I think EQT, they're up in Sweden, not necessarily seen as beholding to any of the big powers. Vitruvian, obviously here in London. So that would have been outside the EU. So I think there was sort of some political views as well as also EQT being a strong player. But why is it done? Why does it matter? If you look at the capital that's being deployed in the US, Sequoia's growth fund alone is $7.5 billion. We've got massive funds investing at the growth stage on the other side of the pond. In Europe, we've done things through the EIF, through the Bridge Business Bank and other institutions to prime the early stage venture ecosystem. And that's worked, right? Today, we have a venture ecosystem. We didn't 20 years ago. We don't have the pension fund capital that the Americans do. U.S. pension funds, they allocate 30% to alternatives, and a portion of that is venture. That just doesn't happen in Europe.
No.
European pension funds don't invest in venture. And so there is no capital base to fund the growth stage. And so that's the intent here, is A, to sort of show that it can be done, to create a fund, create a track record, and then use that to hopefully crowd in more capital over time.
Yeah, I think the awful stat here is something like 0.2% or something. And ironically, I guess a lot of UK pension funds are invested in American venture through other channels. Hopefully we can get some European activity swirling around. The last on my sovereign list here was the deal I saw this week. HMRC awarded London-based Quantexa 175 million on a 10-year sovereign data and AI contract. Sure, not the 900 million awarded to the American firm Palantir, and I would put them in the competitive buckets. I don't know how you see Quantexa and Palantir, but I put them in the same bucket. But it warmed my heart and felt like a step in the right direction, owning the full stack from vendor all the way through supply. But any thoughts on the Quantexa deal?
Yes, look, I'm delightfully torn on this because I always want everybody to have, whether government or private, to have the very best tech they can. And I think Palantir is the obvious choice for this because they are ahead. They're kind of were the first to develop the type of platform they have. They've done more of this work everywhere than anybody else. And so it seems like, well, that seems like the obvious choice. And it probably would have been the obvious choice. They already run other contracts for the NHS. They run contracts for the MOD, the Home Office. But a decision was made by British. And, I haven't used the Quantexa platform. I don't know how good it is and if it is as good, comparable. But you can argue you don't need to have total feature parity as long as you get the job done. And if that is something that helps support that local ecosystem and puts Quantexa in a position to compete for other things, it is on balance probably a good thing.
As long as it's not the B player, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, exactly. I mean, that's always the fear, is that you go with something that's local just because it's local, and you end up with local government and, the people that are trying to run the country running on inferior technology, which is not what we want either.
No, I totally agree. I mean, they have a slightly different data approach and different offerings. I mean, Palantir have got Gotham, but there's a very different commercial approach and a very different data approach. So we'll see. I think they look pretty solid, but we'll find out.